Hey there. Welcome to the Literary Escape Podcast. I'm your host, Becky, and I'm glad you're here today. On the Literary Escape Podcast, we talk about books. We talk about escapes that we can have through our books. And I always have some great book recommendations for you. So, buckle up and let's see where we're going today. Enjoy the show. Welcome back to the Literary Escapes Podcast. I'm excited today to have a Florida author with me on the podcast. Barbara Barrett is with me. She is a romance author and a cozy mystery author, and I cannot wait to jump in and find out how she got into all this. So welcome. I'm super excited you're here today.
Thank you. Thank you.
So how did you get into writing?
Well, I've got two stories I can tell you about that.
Excellent.
One, at least two. One goes farther back into my childhood, into the murky, dark ages. When I think it was my fourth grade teacher who encouraged me to write. She thought that I did a really good job. And her son had this crush on me. So I thought maybe she was just trying to get on my good side. Yeah. And so I didn't really listen to that. Move on to seventh grade, and I was in orchestra. I played violin from all the way through middle school through high school, yes. And on our off days, the other days when the band would be in there, we went to the library, and the librarian was our tutor in creative writing. So, okay, so I got a little encouragement then. I really didn't pay much attention. I did pretty well through high school when it came to essay tests. And actually that really helped me as I got into college, because I was a history major, and basically most of the tests you take are written essays. Yeah. And I also had to do a thesis that got me through that. So writing, but technical writing, has been with me for a long time. Oh, I forgot to mention, when I was in sixth grade, my mother worked for the newspaper, and my mother was so proud of me. She took one of my essays in. It was this little short story of my mythical trip to France, and because she worked there, they printed it. Aww. And so my first time in print. Yeah. Yeah. Strangely enough, years later, we did go to France, and I tried to see some of those things that I think I put into my essay. And also because she continued to work at the newspaper, when I was in high school, they asked me to do a weekly column called Teen Talk. And I was the one who put together, I had reporters in each of the schools, and they would get to me each week, and I would put everything together. And I was the editor of that. Yeah. So that's the one story. Everybody has some kind of story like that. I really didn't believe much in my writing, to tell you the truth. Even in my job, and I worked for the human resources arm of Iowa state government for, most of my career, over 30 years. And they would come to me. I wrote a lot of audit reports and other reports, and did a lot of the director's correspondence, that kind of thing. Okay. So that was all basically technical writing. Yeah. So that takes us into my 30s, my late 30s, which is not, about 2 years ago. Yep. So I don't have a lot of a tragic life to relate to anybody, because I wanted to go through college and be the first one in the family that graduated with a 4-year degree, and I did. Yay. I wanted to find the man of my dreams and have a good marriage, and I did. Yay. I wanted to have 2 beautiful children, and I did. Yay. I wanted a home, and we got that after a couple of years. And so we get to age 38, what some people might call midlife. I'm looking around going, now what do? I need a new goal in life. Mm-hmm. And about that time, I've always been I hate to admit this, but I've loved soap operas ever since I was a young girl. And my aunt would take care of us in the summers, and she'd have on, I think The Young and the Restless was on at that time. I think it was. That's awesome. Anyhow, my favorite at the time, and this was in the very early days of VCRs, I would record Another World every day, and then come home, and instead of having a cocktail to relax, I would watch my soap opera at night.
There you
My
go.
favorite character after a while was Felicia Gallant. But Felicia was a romance writer,
Oh,
and
fun.
she was the one that you think of. She wore a boa. She had all kinds of fascinating friends. She made lots of money.
I love it.
And I thought I could do that.
Ooh.
And at the time, the romance industry was actually very open. Now,
Okay.
I have a knack for choosing to do things at the wrong time or at the same time everybody else does,
Yeah.
because I could barely get anything in front of any agents, let alone editors. I worked for years trying to do that. I wrote my first book for over 10 years.
Okay.
And that's the only one of what my early writing that I've never published, but I haven't given up on it yet. It'll just keep changing form. It's about this time that I discovered the local chapter of Romance Writers of America.
Nice. Okay.
And discovered all the things I'd been doing wrong all this time. So I got in line with them. And so for the next several years, I was a romance writer. I won a few contests, but I never got an agent. So I never was picked up by a publisher at that time.
So was indie publishing wasn't a thing yet, or not as widely?
No, it wasn't at the very beginning of that time.
Okay.
As time went by, yes, it was. But I joined the chapter in Florida when I retired, and some of the writers there who were published were going, stay away from it. It's like vanity publishing. You do not want to get into it.
So I didn't the self-published. They were saying that about. Oh, okay.
So I was gullible. I believed it all, and then it was only like a few years later when they were indie publishing and raving about how much money they were bringing in,
how things
that I
change.
thought, maybe this is a time for me to go a different direction. But I didn't do that at that point. It was only after a few years after I retired that I was contacted by a brand new, I can't even remember much of the details of this. It was an arm of F&W Adams Publishing.
Okay.
And it was called the Crimson Romance at the time.
Okay.
And I think it has since gone by the wayside, but they were willing to publish my first book. Yay. So in September of 2012, my first book was published by them. So we're coming up on the 10-year mark.
You are. That's so exciting.
And so that's when my writing really took off. And how did I get into writing? Long story short, because I wanted to be Felicia Gallant.
That is as good a reason as any, isn't it?
Yeah.
I love that. How fun. You had mentioned in your on your website that you started out reading a lot of mysteries. That
I did.
Enjoy reading mysteries, but then you wrote romance. I thought that was kind of a curious thing.
Well, I've already told you all the things I've done wrong in my career. So I really thought romance was my ticket, because I thought that was where I had the most opportunity to get in.
Yeah.
And so, and I did. I've published 11 contemporary romance novels.
Yeah, definitely wasn't a mistake. So,
and my first indies were 3 romance novels in a series, and I'm in the process of getting my rights back to the 2 trilogies.
Nice.
In this year. So I'm hoping to release those 2 trilogies at some point next year.
Awesome.
And
okay.
I already have my 2 novellas, and my 2 standalones are already out there. I've got those rights back.
Okay, good. That's awesome.
Yeah, so they're on my website along with the other stuff.
Okay.
So I was finishing up my I think I had finished actually my requirements for my master's degree at Drake University. My husband had come back from being in Army training, and so he would be. We got our classes were paid for because we were head residents in the dormitories.
Okay. And nice.
Someday maybe there's a story in that too, but it was his turn to be head resident. And so it was this is the time for me to get pregnant with the first child. So but at the same time I decided, well, I really need to do something. So let's do some student teaching because I can get my teaching degree at the same time. So there I am, my first trimester of pregnancy, and I'm student teaching. And somehow I got through it. And I did pretty well.
Busy.
But anyhow, then the rest of the time, I was basically sitting around, not eating bonbons or anything, but waiting for this baby to get here. And so because I had access to the library at Drake, I went over there and just started browsing for something to read.
Fun.
And
Okay.
that's when I discovered Agatha Christie.
Oh, that's awesome.
And that was like, it's like light goes off in the library. And I must have gone through every one I could get my hands on at the time.
That's
and
fun.
Then when I ran out of those, I discovered Ellery Queen.
Nice.
And a totally different in a way, but not really. It's same kind of, it's a cozy, but it's a cozy where you really have to think. Whereas Agatha, the Agatha Christie, well, the Jane Marple anyhow, are the ones where she knew somebody who had done something that was similar to what she was seeing happen in the present, and that she ties or connects the dots, and she goes, "Oh, that's the murderer."
Oh, funny. Okay.
So I fell in love with the cozy genre.
Yeah.
Well, that my daughter just turned 50, so 50 years ago, I was already entranced.
Already a cozy fan.
And all those books that I collected over the years, I have been fortunate enough. My granddaughter has recently developed an interest in the mystery.
Oh, fun.
And so she's taken all those books from me because the library won't take them anymore.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
how fun to be able to
I feel
pass
like they've
that
been
on.
passed along to the right person.
Oh, that always feels good, doesn't it? Share the things that you've loved with someone else.
Yes, because my daughter could have carried over the years, and it skipped a generation, and that you just
that works.
Hope that's what will happen. Yeah.
So your first cozy series was the Mah Jongg one, right?
Yes.
Tell me about that one, because that just fascinates me.
Well, I retired as soon as I was eligible to retire after 32 years working in state government.
Yeah.
And I kind of shocked my husband when I said I wanted to retire because he, in his mind, thought we were both going to go another 5 years at it. And I said, I can't do this.
Yeah.
It's too much stress for me. And so he finally said, okay, fine. I'm reworking the finances and we can do it, but you need to move to Florida. We won't say why, the tax-free part of that, but we already had purchased a condo several years before that, and we went down there on occasion. And it was, you have to go move to the condo and live in Florida while I continue to work in Iowa for the next several years. And at first, the idea just absolutely floored me. And I'm going, I haven't really been on my own since I was in college. And even then it was really a much more sheltered thing.
Yeah.
But okay, fine. If you must twist my arm to go be in Florida in the winter months, okay, I'll do it.
Yeah, really. Darn it.
And when we left to take me the first time, we drove down in a blizzard. That it was a really bad one. You're familiar with I-80 in Iowa, the interstate that goes straight across the state.
Yeah.
We took that from Des Moines over to Iowa City. We don't usually go that way. We take back roads because it's faster. But there was snow coming down. We were fighting the snow all the way down to Keokuk, Iowa, which is at the southeastern tip. We drive into Missouri and it's like nothing is going on. And from then on, there was no snow. So I knew this was a sign.
Getting out of Iowa.
I was moving the right direction. Exactly. But once we got there, he stayed with me to help me get set up and go get a driver's license and a library card first week or two. And then I was on my own.
How interesting. How was it?
Well, what I decided to do, I'd heard about this social group in town that was for people over 50 who lived in town. And most of them were retired. And so I contacted somebody and said, I'd like to come to your dinner. but I really don't want to drive to this place I don't know. So I rode with somebody else, went to their dinner. They were very welcoming, but in the course of the evening, more than one person said to me, "Do you play Mah Jongg?" And I was very polite because this is people, I wanted to make a good impression.
Yeah.
So I'm going, "No,
Trying to
I've
make
never
friends.
learned." And then they said, "Oh, well, so-and-so is going to be teaching that come in another month or so. You should take that course and join them." And I'm going, "Oh, yeah, right. Okay." Because to me, that's old ladies played Mah Jongg. Well, you know what? Old ladies and a lot of other people do play Mah Jongg too. And frankly, I was an old lady at that time, but I didn't believe that was the case. So
I feel you.
I took there were 4 of us who took the course. And believe it or not, 3 of us are still playing with each other today.
Wow.
That the 4th person had to move away and go back to her family in Missouri. But that was in 2009.
Wow, that's impressive.
And that was actually a different version than a lot of people play. I was playing a version called Wright Patterson that is played by women whose husbands are in the military, in most likely in the Air Force, because it was developed at Wright Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio years ago.
Who knew?
For people whose husbands were going to get transferred all over the world, and keeping up with the yearly card that came from the other Mah Jongg group was very difficult. By the time you got it, they were ready to move on to a new card in some cases. So they developed their own version, which the book of their hands usually lasts from 7 to 10 years. They just changed it again. So I learned how to play that. And then about 2 years later, someone else came to town and said, "Well, why don't you play this other version?" Which is what I learned. And so I play them both today.
Wow.
And now you want to know how I ever got this into, so after writing the first 3 romances in my productions, which basically it's the 2 people that they work in Hollywood, and they've got they produce television shows, which I know so much about. Well, I do on the user end because I watch so much television, so I just threw my own ideas into it. I decided it was time to go back to my love and to start writing a mystery.
How interesting.
And a cozy mystery, because as I said, I'd been weaned on Agatha Christie and Ellery Queen. And the thing about cozies, if you're familiar with them, is that most of them have some kind of niche that they write in.
Yeah.
A lot of culinary mysteries of
there are
cooks and caterers. And a friend of mine, Marilee Ashford, writes about 2 women who put together cookbooks for small organizations. I cook, but I don't cook like that well. Yeah. And so I thought, well, I don't really want to do that, nor do I want. They've got scrapbooking, they've got people that are veterinarians, people that are doctors,
beachside ones, and
so I thought, I don't think anybody else writes about Mah Jongg. At least I haven't seen any.
Yeah.
I have since found some Mah Jongg books, but not anything that I had in mind. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to write a series about 4 friends. Let's just not make it easy for me. Let's not have one protagonist. Let's have 4. And as we move through this series, let's rotate. And each one will take a turn being the lead character. And then I can infuse, I'll have to do 4 different personalities, won't I? Oh, that'll be fun.
Yeah.
So I started writing the series about these 4 friends. And the first chapter starts with them playing Mah Jongg together. And that's become the format, that it starts with their playing Mah Jongg,
with the Mah Jongg
and it will
game.
end with them playing Mah Jongg.
Nice.
And in between, a murder happens, and they somehow, even though they're retired, even though they have no training, they are amateur sleuths, and they help solve the murder.
That's awesome.
And then I thought, well, the titles of cozy mysteries are so cute anymore.
Oh, they are.
I can't do that on my own. But what I could do is I could start using a term from Mah Jongg for each of the different books.
Oh.
And so the first book, I'm sure you don't know much about, well, maybe you do know about Mah Jongg, but
I don't know much about Mah Jongg.
It's played with tiles instead of with cards, but it's a lot like a card game. It's a lot like, and anyhow, there are 3 suits of tiles. There are cracks and bams or bamboos, and there are dots.
Okay.
So my first 3 books, the first book is Cracks in a Marriage. The second book is Bamboozled. The third book is Connect the Dots. And
I love it.
On.
That's so fun.
And it's gotten so that I decide on the title and then I figure out what's going to happen in the book. Most of the time. And so I have pretty much stuck with the format of rotating who is in the first 2 books are the same character. Okay. But then we start switching off on book 3. And I've now done 9. The last one came out last summer or fall. And I left it so that if I wanted to finish the series, it was done. It was complete. But I also decided maybe I'll go back to it, but I do want to do this new series. And so I'm going to let that, the Mah Jongg group kind of sit for a while.
Can sit for a little while. Okay.
And I've been thinking a lot about it since then. There's a kind of a turning point at the end. It's not for them. It's kind of involves the main characters, but it kind of involves the love interest of one of the main characters.
Okay.
And so I've decided that when I do go on, I'm going to do books 10, 11, and 12 to have an even dozen. And it's going to be the Mah Jongg Mysteries 2.0. So it'll be a little bit different than what the first 9 were, but it's still the same characters and so forth. But that's on the shelf for the time being.
Okay.
And in the meantime, this past January, I launched my second series, and I made this really remarkable decision, which I live to regret, which was to do a rapid release. So I wrote 3 that I could release in January, 1 in February, and 1 in March.
Okay.
And I have been catching my breath ever since then. But that, I don't know if you want to talk about those now or you had another question about it.
Go ahead, yeah.
That is the Nailed It series. Nailed It Home Reno Mystery series. And I've gotten smarter in one respect because I have one protagonist. She has a partner that's her daughter, but I stay with the one person, and her name is Rowena Summerfield.
Probably helpful, yeah.
And I've switched from third person to first person. So Ro tells a story every time, and I absolutely love that way of writing. Cool. It's limiting because everything has to happen in the present in front of her, or else gets retold somehow in front of her.
Yeah.
But I really enjoy it because I can infuse a lot of my own thoughts and personality into her.
Fun.
And live through her. So those 3 books are out. And I decided to use a term from construction, which I know so much about. Actually, I do, because I'm the daughter of a carpenter.
Okay.
And I'm the wife of a woodworker.
Okay. So you at least are familiar with
many nails in my lifetime, but it's still the Nailed It.
I love that name for the series. That's so fun.
And so the first book is called Measure Twice, Murder Once, using that old axiom.
Yeah.
The second book is Loose Screw. And I wanted to use screw, and I had so many ways I could do that. And my editor said, I think you better pull back. Better stick to and because I had some really good ones. But and then the third one is Death by Drywall.
Okay.
So nice. I have had a great time trying to figure out how to kill people different ways. I don't like to shoot, and I don't like to use a knife.
Okay.
Don't ask me why, because I will poison, smother, hit them on the head, whatever. But I don't.
Lots of other
like
ways
those.
to kill someone.
I do not like those. So
Okay.
I have currently just finished the rough draft of the fourth book, which is called Homicide by Hammer.
Nice.
And while I'm waiting another week before I go back and I finish that so that I can send it off to my editor in July, I've been playing around with what I can do for the fifth book. And I think I've got.
And are you coming up with like the title first?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, well,
okay. I like that
actually,
idea.
I have to make sure that I've got some way that I can kill the person with something sort of related.
Something kind of, construction
So
related.
in this case, I think I'm going to asphyxiate them with fumes from varnish that haven't been vented in a home site.
Okay.
So working title is The Varnished Truth.
Nice.
Which is opposite, the actual expression is the unvarnished.
Unvarnished, yeah.
So I didn't know if that's exciting or not enough. So I'm just kind of playing around with that one.
At least get you going. So
well, I could also use the word ventilation and varnish in there somehow if I could play on those two, but I haven't. I just thought about this last night, so that's where we are.
I like it. So you've got the first 3 out.
Yes.
You did the rapid release. Are you going to do 3 more with the rapid or just
never? I mean, not again.
Okay. So it was a good experience then.
Yes. I might be able to get 2 out this year.
Okay.
But I need to go back to those romance novels. I think I have re-edited 3 of them. I need to re-edit the others and have them ready to go. I won't have my rights until February of next year. So I'm just kind of gearing up for that, but I'm trying to begin to, in my newsletter to my mystery readers, begin to suggest that there's another person out there, another part of me that writes romance, but mystery readers aren't necessarily romance readers.
True.
And
vice
versa.
True.
So I have a second newsletter that has been lying around for a couple years that I haven't done much with. So it'll be time to start to play with it.
Okay.
And meanwhile, yet this summer, I think I'm going to make a box set of the first 5 books in the Mah Jongg series. I think it's time to do that. The first book is free. Everybody listening, the first book is free in
I love a good
format.
first book free. That's fun.
So I will hook that with the other next 4.
That's one of the really cool things with being self-published is you have lots of options of how you package your goodies. So that's fun. I like that.
I like that part. I forgot to mention that with my second series, I decided, another big decision, to add an animal to this. I've never had an animal in my writing. And so my cat in my Nailed It series is named after the cat I had as the last of the cats I had when I was a teenager. And he looks a little bit like that. But I never knew until I was reading somebody else's book with a cat that those are called tuxedo cats. I always call them black and white cats. But,
they have the white on the chest and
So and he appears on all the covers along with Ro.
That's fun. Okay.
It's kind of like a little sign to the readers that if you like to read books with cozies with animals in them, here's a cat.
Here's a cat. Got you covered. Yeah.
I
love it. I love your coverage. Done a really nice job with.
Well, we have to thank my cover artist, Chris Kreidler. She does an absolutely fabulous job.
Yeah, she does a really good job for you. They look really good. So
somehow I have wandered off the path, believe it or not, because this is home renos, and yet only the first 2 books, I think. Yeah, the first 2 books really have a home reno in them. And then her boyfriend hires her to remodel this restaurant that comes up in the second book. In the third book, they're working on that. And then he gets this brilliant idea for the 4th book that he wants to add a wine bar to it. So that's the new construction that they're working on.
Yeah, not a home reno.
And in the 4th book, the person that is murdered, he's an artist, he's a sculptor, and he's in what used to be, it's a converted garage. So it's high enough ceiling to be to have sculptures in there. Somehow she will wind up converting that in book 5 as part of a home show. That's where I'm at right now.
That's where you're
So
going.
I've always
Okay.
wanted to put her in a home show, and somebody gets killed that she was competing with in another house.
I like it. Okay.
Yeah.
That'll be a fun one. As this is the Literary Escape podcast,
Mhm.
where are your books set?
Okay. Well, the romances, the trilogies I'm getting back, I had this idea that I wanted to pay homage to my home state of Iowa.
Oh,
And
fun.
so the first series, the Matchmaking Motor Coach series, is set in my hometown of Burlington, Iowa.
Okay.
3 brothers who rehab motor coaches. I'm always rehabbing something, I guess. And they fall in love with 3 different women that are somewhat how related to each other. I moved a little bit into the middle of the state for the second series, which is Sullivan's Creek, which is about, again, construction, the planning and the construction and the selling of Sullivan's Creek, the new homes that are built there. And then when I went to Underwrite Productions, I finally allowed myself to go to Los Angeles, where I spent, in California, I spent all of maybe 12 weeks years ago when my son went out there for pilot season, because he had just been in a movie, his first movie.
Fun. Okay.
He was in the Bridges of Madison County. He plays the son at a young age.
Oh,
and
wow.
he got the bug to be in the movies. And so he went out to, he was 17, so he was too young to be on his own.
Okay.
So Mom got to be with him, or Dad went with him for like 2.5 weeks, and Mom was able to telecommute with her job.
Nice.
And be out there for 12 weeks. And it was one of the highlights of my life, besides moving to Florida, because I'm just a Hollywood nut.
Right.
And I still say there's a screenplay somewhere up here that maybe someday will make its way out to paper and to the screen.
That would be fun.
But,
that's really
so
cool.
That's where I got my Los Angeles.
Okay. So that's LA.
Okay. Let's move back to the Mah Jongg and to the Loose Screw, because they're all set in Central Florida.
Okay.
Which is just where I happen to live.
Exactly. That makes sense.
The first series is in the mythical town of Serendipity Springs.
Okay, I like it.
And like my home, where I live, it's a newer place, a newer development. So most of the people there have come from other places.
Sure.
There's some people that are native-born Floridians, but there are a lot of people that have come from other places. Mm-hmm. And then in writing that series, I came up with a few other towns nearby. And one of those towns was Shasta. Don't ask me where I get these names, but Shasta is an older Florida town.
Okay.
It was connected with the orange groves, I think, at one time. Okay. And that's where the Nailed It mysteries are set. So they're fairly close. Yeah. And I do have a crossover character.
I was going to ask about that. That's really cool.
The guy that is the brother of one of the suspects in the very first book, he's a handsome hunk who owns a deli in Shasta, and he becomes the love interest of Rowena in the Nailed It.
Very cool. I like it.
I'm very slow with my love stories and with this, even though Chuck would like me to move it along faster. They finally are going to get together in the book I just wrote, and then the book 5.
The 4th and 5th. Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, that's the nice thing about Cozy Mysteries is the series is you have the time, because it's not about the love, and it's not about the love, it's about the mystery, and being able to work that in slowly is kind of fun.
I can't quite give up the love story.
As a reader, I enjoy it, but I also enjoy the slow of it. So that's kind of fun.
And I've also included in the Nailed It series kind of an ongoing overriding mystery that involves her superintendent. And unfortunately, I didn't plan exactly where it was going to go. So I just planned a few little steps each time. And we're getting to the point where now I've got to decide.
Got to really figure it out.
Yeah. We have to move with that. So
that's so interesting. I would think that with a mystery of any type, you have to know where you're going with it, because you have to plant things, like you were just saying, you have to plant your seeds. And
wouldn't you think that? I I listened to another one of your podcasts yesterday
Uh-huh.
with my good friend Ann McIntosh, and
Yes,
you were talking about the same thing and about how it must be very difficult for a pantser to write a mystery. And I'm thinking,
exactly.
well, I'm a pantser and a plotter. Where was I
When you can
going with
go
that?
back, I would think after you've kind of got the story written, you can go back and plant things if you need
Yes,
to
I plant
after
things
the
or I
fact.
change things. I
Yeah.
have to change one of the suspects, what he does in order for it to make sense at the end. I have to make sure I need to add a lot more flavor in about how some of the suspects dress because that's important at the end and
Okay.
things like that.
Very good. So you've got the Nailed It series, or got 4 in the works, 5 is percolating and getting ready to go.
Ventilating.
And then you've got your romances that'll be coming out later this year. That'll be fun to
Yes.
see. Awesome. Where can people follow you? Where do you
Okay.
like to be?
I'm at www.barbarabarrettbooks.com. Barrett
Okay,
has 2 R's and 2 T's.
nice. Okay. And I will link that in the show notes. And are you on social media at all, or?
Um, I I'm on Twitter, but I don't do it very often.
Okay,
And I'm on Facebook,
awesome.
and I certainly welcome people signing up for my newsletter. If they do that, they will receive a free digital copy of The Mistresses of Mah Jongg, which details how it's like little bios of all 4 of the
Oh, fun.
characters and also a little bit about Mah Jongg.
Very cool. Well, worth signing up for. That sounds really good.
I encourage people to do that. Yeah,
It's a good way to keep up with what's going on with authors. I love my author newsletters. Those are a lot of fun. So
great.
very good. Well, thank you for joining me today. I really enjoyed chatting with you. This was
Well,
a
it's
lot of
always a
fun.
pleasure.
Thanks for joining me today on the Literary Escapes podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode and maybe would like some more Literary Escape book recommendations, then come check out the Literary Escape Society. We're a community of travelers who love books, or maybe book lovers who love to travel. Either way, if you need an escape, a literary escape, come join us as we read our way around the world together, one book at a time. Check out the show notes to learn more about the Literary Escape Society. And we'll see you next time on the next episode.